first.
Did you know that the astrological sign of the scorpion is associated with the first chakra? That's what it says here.
Okay, here we go, guys. Here we go. Starting now. Hello, and welcome to the Remembering Podcast. This is a podcast designed to help you remember who you are. Today, we are going to be breaking down the subject of chakras, and I am one of your three hosts, OnenO.
I'm KK.
I'm Taylor.
And like I said, we're going to talk about chakras. So Taylor's going to take the reins here, and we're just going to dive deep. We're going to try to answer all things related to chakras. We're going to bring our life experience, our book knowledge, all kinds of stuff. So Taylor, why don't you give us a little breakdown?
Okay, well, I'm super intimidated to be the voice on chakras because I've only started learning about them more recently, even this year. I'm by no means an expert, but I have been studying them a lot lately. So
You are the guru.
and I get really excited about it. I used to, like maybe 10 years ago, I worked for a company called Aveda that was a beauty company.
Yes.
And their name is inspired by Ayurvedic principles.
Oh, yeah.
Like a lot, they have Sanskrit on a lot of their packaging. A lot of their formulas are based on ancient Indian medicine. And chakras come up in a lot of, especially in their spa work. And so I remember talking to my uncle one like Christmas, we were all together and saying, yeah, I don't know. I really like the company. The products are cool, but they're into chakras. So I'm just like, or I said chakras and
Yeah.
I don't know. And he's a physics teacher. He said, well, there's a little truth in everything. I mean, why not write it off? You know,
course.
and I was like, oh, I'm allowed to be a girl who grew up in like a Baptist house. I'm allowed to entertain this idea. And so
Isn't it funny what we do when we're
know.
given permission?
Oh,
what?
well.
Okay.
Well,
I won't
let's
get in
see.
trouble.
Let's see about this.
Okay.
I know.
Yeah.
So I just still didn't really dive in until more recently when a friend of mine who's really into energy work in the body and how it affects our overall wellness did a kind of scan over me and said, your bottom three chakras are like inactive, which is not a thing. There's
Right,
energy
yeah.
that flows through all of them, but she's like, they are, so chakra means spinning wheel. That's what the word means. And it's almost like you have these like cushiony balls of light that are arranged along your spine, where the energy collides, and we'll talk about that in a second. But it was like my bottom three. She said they're like hubcaps without wheels on them. They're just beat up. They're mutilated. And this coincided with me realizing I was always in my mind about things. I felt anxious a lot. I never knew what it felt like to be stable and grounded. And the bottom three chakras are actually the ones that help connect you to the earth energy. And so I was like, well, maybe I should look into re-energizing that part of my body, and maybe it would help with this total imbalance. It was like my body felt like it was a tornado.
Yeah.
And like the top was this big cyclone, and then the bottom was just like bouncing around on the ground and just couldn't get a footing. There was nothing there. So it was like, how do we balance this out? And you always hear about chakra balancing.
Totally.
And it's about having the energy be even the whole time. So a little bit of background about chakras. Chakra is the Indian pronunciation. It's like the CH in chocolate.
Oh, yeah.
Chakra. But a lot of times people just say chakra, and that's fine too. Honestly,
I just say chakra.
both ways are accepted. So in ancient Indian healing practice, the medical practitioners would put their hands on their patient's body, and when they would move really, really slowly, they could feel the subtle shifts in the body. Oh, there's more warmth here. Oh, there's kind of a buzzy sensation here. Oh, something's happening here. Come to find out now more recently, the areas that they were feeling those increases in energy and calling chakras are actually nerve plexes in the body, where it's like a major convergence of nerve wiring.
Yeah.
It's like an intersection. So there is a lot more energy there. And they were just attuned to moving so slowly and subtly that they were able to feel that through their hands.
Oh, cool. So we have energy intersections in our body, is what you're saying?
Yeah, well, our neurology, our neurological synapses go down our entire spine.
Yeah.
Right.
And so that is where the majority of the chakras take place. There's one that's more like on our forehead and our brow, but also the brain takes up more space up there. So that
Yeah.
makes sense too.
Yeah.
Quickly, just to maybe
Yeah.
overview where in the body.
Yeah.
The root chakra is at the base of your spine.
Mm-hmm.
Your second chakra is in your pelvis area.
Mm-hmm.
Third chakra is associated with the solar plexus. Fourth with the heart. Fifth with the throat and the thalamus, or the there's thyroids.
Thyroid.
Thank you. Yeah, there's organs that each one of these chakras is associated with too. And then so fifth is in the throat. Sixth is in the middle of the forehead or in the center of the brain, associated with the pineal gland, and then the crown chakra at the top of the head.
Yeah.
Yeah, going up the spine.
And something that's really cool is, as we'll kind of unpack with each one, they each have a color associated with them. And the Vanderbilt School of Holistic Medicine actually recently had a study showing that the frequency of the color, because color is just light bouncing off of different frequencies,
Yeah.
that the frequency that we associate with each color aligned with the energetic frequency of those energy points in the body.
That's awesome.
Which
That's really cool.
the ancient Indian practitioners didn't know. They just said, I see red when I work on this area.
Or
So
did
is
they
that
know?
what?
Or maybe they did. They knew in a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that when people say, I can read auras?
I have no idea.
It's not exactly the same. Auras are kind of talking about the energy field around the body.
Right.
And almost like this bubble that we have around us.
Well, when we get to the throat chakra,
Yeah.
I have a story
Yeah.
about getting my aura read.
Okay.
And he was able to tell me my throat chakra was blocked.
Yeah.
That's
Interesting.
why I'm like,
Well,
I've made this
yes.
association with the
Sure.
two.
And
maybe
a
I'm
lot
wrong.
of people who are into auras are also into studying chakras. It can get like all of that terminology, I feel like gets associated with like the new age category of things, and people are immediately like, I'm in, or don't talk to me anymore.
Yeah.
So
I think there's a lot of people that get threatened by this type of conversation.
Yeah.
And I think it's worth noting that this is, we are Westerners. We live in America,
Yeah.
you know, but this is an Eastern philosophy based
Right.
conversation. So there's a part of our culture that's kind of shell shocked by this whole idea. Maybe not shell shocked, but we just don't quite connect with it because it's not deep into our roots.
And I'm going to be honest, I've never really delved deep into chakra like teachings because I think I get too in the head about like occult wisdom and esoteric knowledge
Yeah.
and things like that of, back in history. But this is really, really important stuff. But I think because Westerners have taken it and made it elementary almost in a way, it has turned me off. But I also know it's turned a lot of people off when I even use the word chakra. So I tend to use energy center
yeah.
because I know that we are a big ball of energy. We're a big ball of light. And so all of this, I believe in it 100%, so clearly. And I am so excited to learn what you have to say today. But I do want anybody listening that's kind of feeling like, oh, I don't like this topic. Like, I understand, but like just reframe your wording around it. And that might help.
And also keeping an open mind and just seeing how does this actually apply and like use your own mental discernment. And I think there's a part of you that if you don't resonate, then follow that. Like your inner spirit will guide you to the knowledge that you need to know. But additionally, check yourself and see if your ego is just being challenged and if you're just
exactly.
fearful of the unknown.
Yep.
Because if your ego is just chiming in, like maybe set that aside. But also, you guys need to spend more time on the West Coast because this is like coming from LA.
Everybody counts.
This is every conversation.
Yeah, I mean,
We are in the South right now.
I know.
yeah. But even in the West, I get turned off. Like when I go to LA and they start bringing this up, I'm like, but
Well,
how?
That's
and I
because of your cultural mindset.
Bro, yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit, yeah. And I think there's a pendulum swing to this. I like to find that middle point because on one side you have the just kind of the mentally shut down, mentally closed, fearful kind of perspective, or just the disregarding as that's just new age or whatever. And then on the other extreme, you have these people that actually don't really know about chakras, but they talk a lot about it.
A lot.
And that's why I want to clarify right now. This is all very new to me, and I'm excited about it because I've seen the personal application for my own life. But this is like second hand or third or fourth or fifth or 11th secondhand
Yeah.
chakra teaching. Like I am not a super experienced practitioner. It's all new, but it's fun to talk about and to engage. Yeah.
Absolutely. And not to like poo poo on anybody that talks about chakras because
Right.
I've learned, listen, like I have a lot of experience with, like it really opened me up a lot. And like I've got this cool book called Wheels of Light and I'm really excited about it. But I know how sensitive some people can be to this topic.
Yeah.
Because,
I think when I say keep your mind open, just see it as like another lens that you could learn something about your body that maybe you didn't know before.
Yeah.
Like
absolutely.
if you go to college to become a doctor, you're going to learn a lot of words you never heard before and blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
And this is, don't take anything that we're about to talk about with like just pure belief. Like don't believe in what we're saying. Just take it as more information to maybe educate
curious.
yourself. Yeah. And then see how it applies.
If you're curious about it, we have a plethora of like books and references and authors and all types of teachings that like we can direct you to. So,
And maybe it's just cool to know that there are people who exist in the world that think this way.
Yeah.
And you don't have to think this way.
Right.
But it's like, oh, some people do. Interesting.
Yeah.
What the spice of life.
Yeah,
The variety
exactly.
of this world we live
it's
in.
just a
Yeah.
spicy spice.
Yeah. I love that. It's just like another lens to try to understand ourselves more, understand our bodies and
I
what
know when
exactly
I'm
we
out
are.
of balance within my masculine and feminine energies, I always associate that with the chakras. Like, which ones am I engaged in more?
Yeah.
So, anyway, tell us
Yeah.
about
Well, sure.
chakras.
Let's get into it.
Like I said, we have this spinal fluid, cerebral spinal fluid that goes around our brain, down our spine, into the base of our coccyx area, which is actually where the root chakra is, and then back up again. And it does this every couple of hours, I believe. Someone can correct me on that. That's just what I've learned. And it, in conjunction with that, the more esoteric, ethereal energy in our body kind of has a similar path. So if you Kundalini teaching is this imagery of a snake coiled up in the pelvis area, right? I'm looking at you,
the base
OnenO.
of the spine. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then as you come to more consciousness and to more awakening, the snake kind of rears its head and lifts up and uncoils and weaves its way in and out of your spine up until it reaches the top of your head. And then that's enlightenment. Is that how it works?
That's really it. And I want to first put a little disclaimer right here. We're now starting to talk about snakes. And in Western culture, this is going to trigger a lot of people. So I want to demystify this.
Sure.
The East uses symbolism. We've talked about metaphor. We've talked about Joseph Campbell. The East uses symbolism that the West associates with fear. The East has a completely different meaning for this symbol. Quickly, in the West, we associate the snake with the devil and like the
Temptation.
negative principle.
Yep.
In the East, Joseph Campbell breaks down that the snake is very much associated with what we would think the butterfly is associated with. So the snake is always becoming new. In fact, if the snake does not shed its skin and become new, basically once a month, it dies. So the snake nature here in Eastern symbolism has specifically to do with rebirth and always becoming new, shedding your old skin. And like we would say, like butterflies, you were a caterpillar and now you become this beautiful butterfly. It's a symbol for transformation. So then to get back to what you're talking about with Kundalini, they talk about their word for life force energy is prana. And when I say they, I mean Eastern. This is like Vedic.
Indian.
Yeah. So basically, in this worldview, we have life force energy that is always flowing through us.
China calls it chi.
Yeah.
Japan calls it Reiki.
Yep.
India calls it
Prana.
my Reiki teacher, who is from the southeastern United States, calls it Holy Spirit.
Exactly. It is the same. Yeah, it's the same. I was actually about to bring that up too. So then what they're talking about is that basically each chakra is a different level of perception. So when you're in your root chakras, it's almost like Maslow's hierarchy.
Yes.
Yeah.
It
Were
really,
you gonna
there
bring that
really
up?
is a
I brought it
parallel.
up because
Yeah.
in Ben's book, he has this little cute little thingy
Great.
here.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll talk about later.
Yeah. Basically, when you're perceiving life just through your root chakra, you're thinking just about safety, security, where's my next meal? where am I going to lay my head tonight? All that type of stuff. And as the Kundalini raises up through these chakras, your perception on life begins to change. So, actually, I don't want to jump too much further ahead with
Sure.
that. But
But I do want to talk
So when
about
we talk about the snake uncoiling and weaving its way up, the idea is that as it makes its way around each of these energy centers, each of these chakras in the body, it spins them and activates them in accordance with what's appropriate, how much energy is needed in that time. There's also the visual of the chakras being like a lotus flower that can open and close as necessary. When it's open, the energy pours out more freely and comes in more freely. And when it's closed, we might have more self-restraint in that particular area. And my teacher was very big on your body knows when it needs to open or close each chakra and when it's appropriate. That if you go to a practitioner and they say, oh, your throat chakra is really closed, let's work on opening that. Mm-hmm. But they don't know, this is her example, that you have a dinner with your mother-in-law that evening. Maybe your throat chakra, which has to do with authenticity and expression and honesty, needed to stay more closed because you don't want to lay into her about all of your thoughts that you have about her, but your body knows that. Mm-hmm. And so forcing them open or forcing them closed is not really any of our business. Even in our own body, it's more about just allowing our energy to flow freely and trusting that our bodies can make that call.
Totally. And there's, I think, a conversation of balance of chakras too.
Yes.
Because just because you know how to communicate, and maybe you're one of those type of people that's like, quote unquote, fierce with the truth, like, well, that person's just upset because they can't handle the truth. I'm just speaking it like it is. That doesn't mean that your throat chakra is open.
Right.
It means that you just are very intellectual and know how to express
or
yourself.
Or you could too overactive.
Yeah, it could be too overactive.
Or
And
just
I think
in
later,
the aggressive, the root chakra can translate to aggression
Totally,
in some ways.
yeah.
So let's unpack each of these because they're associated with the parts of the body. So when you have a healthy energy in each of these chakras, the organs that are nearby function really well. And
in some ways, these chakras are associated directly with the organs.
With physical health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they almost say like, so the chakras are the energy system, and let's just say that is fifth dimensional. I'm just making that up so we can understand the metaphor. But so let's say that the chakra exists in the fifth dimension, like an overlay of this dimension. And then what manifests in the third dimension is an organ in the body. So there's an energy center in the energy dimension that manifests as an organ in the physical dimension.
Okay. And how that energy, then when it gets in the third dimension of time and space, the effect that we actually see and experience from it.
Right.
And then throughout the years, there have been certain emotions and feelings, different ways of being, different psychological ways of understanding things associated with each of the chakras. Mm-hmm. So if you have a challenge with your thyroid, and you have a challenge with personal expression, and you have a challenge with authenticity, it might be a good idea to look into that fifth chakra area.
Totally. Yeah.
So there's all these different parallels, and it's endless how we can unpack each one. There could be an episode or 4 on each chakra.
Yeah, there's so much to talk about. I would, before we maybe break down each one, I also wanted to interject kind of the idea of how these chakras open. And essentially, they actually talk about how the heart chakra is almost like this mirror wall. It's a mirror wall to the lower 3 chakras. And that basically everybody, while you can say that everybody may have a little bit more energy here, a little less energy there, their worldview is essentially that everybody starts with the base 3 chakras. And there's no guarantee that your heart chakra opens. And until your heart chakra opens, the other 3 do not become activated.
The upper 3.
Yeah, the throat, the third eye, and the crown. So the conversation isn't that, oh, maybe your crown is overactive, but your root is blocked. If your root is blocked, none of them are going.
Yeah.
You can have maybe a little more disposition to be a little more in the clouds and whatever, but that doesn't just by default mean that your chakra is open.
Yeah.
So the conversation we'll get into is talking about each chakra and what each one is associated with on an emotional level or a thought-based level or a physical level. But then eventually the idea is to raise the energy through each one of these chakras. But the heart, I think we're going to talk quite a bit about, because
I was
that's
about to
like
say.
the crux of it all.
I mean, I want to say the heart's the most important, but
It
that might be a little
is.
biased.
Well,
Like,
the heart's the
Well-
first organ that's created in our bodies.
And it's the bridge, because we have, there's 7 chakras. So there's the lower 3, which are associated with like the physical life on earth. And then there's the upper 3 that are more associated with connecting to God and the divine outside of ourselves. And the heart is the center one that bridges those together and allows our physical expression of being human
the
and also our
tether.
divine expression to merge.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So, and for me, the heart was the first chakra when I started paying attention during my meditations to how my energy felt in my body. That was the first one that I could really feel swell or contract when I really started to slow down and pay attention.
I heard recently some people call it the Christ Center.
In the heart.
The heart, yeah. And that could be just the Western, but the person that was teaching that was definitely from the East. So I don't know how like that translates, but we can talk about that. Yeah.
Well, the heart symbolism in Christian mythology of the heart on fire with the crown
The
of thorns
sacred
around
heart.
it.
Yeah.
The crown of thorns is kind of a weird symbol to me, but it's supposed to mean the crown chakra. So when you see that symbolism of Christ with the heart and the crown of thorns around it, what that actually means is the merging of the mind and the heart. And then it has ignited it with the flame of truth.
Never, because I was obsessed with that image when I was a little girl. My mom had a little Jesus photo when he's holding a lamb, and they were so cute. But his heart was on fire and it had thorns around it. And as a little girl, I was so perplexed by that. I was like, I hope his heart doesn't hurt.
Right.
But as I've gotten older, like I've learned how important that heart center is, but also the connection with Jesus and. Anyway, I never put together the mind merging with the heart and that being like a connection point.
And then that creates the flame of truth. The
You're blowing my
ignition
mind.
of the Holy
I'm
Spirit.
having a moment.
Yeah.
Well, and sometimes I see the eye in the Sacred Heart.
Yeah. Because it's kind of the same idea. Like the Jesus quote we quoted, I think last week, of when your
eye is single.
when your eye is single, you'll
Which
see
is
your
kind of
body
like the
as
third
light.
eye.
It is your
And
third eye.
and the wisdom and
Intuitive
the
eye.
understanding.
Also, I'll maybe go into this more when we get to the third eye. But
much to
Wow.
talk about.
I actually call the third eye the first eye, because that is where you are perceiving through the duality of your two eyes.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's not your third
It's
eye.
actually,
your
I always
first
feel like
eye.
Cyclops.
Okay.
Like I close these eyes and then that one pops open and I'm
Right.
like, oh, I'm actually seeing.
Yeah.
Let's talk about
All
the
right.
root chakra.
Let's get to it. Let's get to it. Yeah.
Sorry.
We're just jumping all over.
So the root chakra,
We
like you
got a
said,
bunch of Virgos over here, and I'm just like popping everywhere.
right? I'm like orderly. I have notes. Well, I'm a Virgo rising, actually.
Yes.
But we can.
You're by far the most organized of the three of us,
know.
and I
How
love
is
that
that?
about you.
Because
Yes.
KK is a realtor and psychotherapist.
But I'm not that organized. I wish I was.
Oh.
I'm I'm a
and like
Virgo
hairstylists
rising.
hairstylists are known for being all over the place and creative
Really?
and not being good at.
I do have Gemini and Sagittarius, which we'll
Oh my
probably
gosh,
need to
we
do
are,
that
like,
at some
way-
time.
Oh, God, yeah.
Okay, we need to get
All
back
right.
to the chakras.
Centering. We're centering.
Whoa.
We're going into the root.
Thanks, guys. Thanks
Here we
for
go.
bearing with us. Okay, so root chakra is our connection to earth energies. That's like the base of our spine. That's where as energy works its way up from the earth into our body, that's its first contact. And it's associated with the color red. Like you said, it's associated with that base level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Am I capable of providing life's necessities for myself? It's associated with food, shelter, safety.
And
Yep.
sex.
Not quite yet, actually. A little bit.
Am I
But
jumping ahead?
A little bit, yeah.
It can't more of like the physical life sustaining procreation. But sex has been lumped with
it
that
would
one
be
and the
sex
next
in the
chakra.
survival sense.
In the survival
Yeah,
sense.
Yes, sure,
right.
sure.
Not like a cosmic love union. Yeah.
Well, the cosmic is like much higher.
Okay.
Up here.
Come on. The brakes. Okay. Root chakra, red. So as I was learning about root chakra and the color red, which is blood, it's vitality, I was looking through my phone and I have organized all of my food apps in a folder. And I was ordering lunch that day and I opened the folder. Every single one of my food apps is red.
Oh, wow.
Which was really interesting to me. Like DoorDash, whatever. Like they were all the color. That's the only one coming to mind right now.
Totally.
I have a Papa John's app on there.
Yelp
yeah,
is
they're
red.
all red,
Yeah.
which was just really interesting to me because it's like base needs. And if you think about a lot of fast food restaurants, they have red in their logo because it's that survival instinct, get food now.
Oh, yeah.
It actually makes you feel more hungry when you see the color red.
Wow, I'm thinking of all of them in my head right now.
Yeah.
And it's also kind of it's an alarm visually as well. Yeah. That's why red is always associated with, danger or
Exit
stoplights.
signs.
Yeah, all the things that try to get your attention. Because also as a waveform, when you think about light as a waveform, red has the longest waveform.
Yeah.
So it sticks out from nature quite a bit.
Also, as a hair colorist in chemistry, red is the largest color molecule.
Oh, wow.
Like if you color someone's hair red and then they want to take it back, it's the hardest to get to fit into the hair shaft and make stay.
Oh, man.
And then when you go to remove it, it's the hardest to get out because the molecule is just so much bigger.
Wow.
That's
Interesting.
crazy. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
The molecule is
I
bigger.
also associate red with like if I meet a really aggressive person,
Yeah.
I immediately think, whoa, they're living
When you're
down.
angry, you see
Oh,
red.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the root chakra is where our entire sense of safety or fear starts. And as the energy works its way up through our whole body, it's either tinged with safety or fear, and it affects all of our behaviors.
Yeah. Yeah, because this is like a house that's being built from the foundation up. So if your foundation is completely out of balance, the rest of the house can't stand.
I like that idea of light too. Like the red is the longest spectrum because unlike Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you're looking at a pyramid, the base is the longest. And then each tier up gets a little bit shorter and shorter and shorter, just as light does.
Totally.
Okay.
And it also, Carolyn Myss teaches in The Anatomy of Spirit that the root chakra, she calls it our tribal chakra. So, which a lot of times, and especially in early human history, our tribe is where we found our safety. So this relates to our family of origin. This relates to our early childhood community. This relates to our religious groups that we were affiliated with. My major tribe where I felt safe and belonging growing up was in the church until I started questioning all of that. And the tribal sense is also associated with our root chakra. And so tribal drums have an immediate effect on making us feel safe and connected.
Totally.
And that's also why when you're at a concert,
Campfires,
concerts where there is a continuous beat, everyone's hearts and bodies synchronize to the beat and you feel connected and belonging and that tribal sense with all of the people in the stadium. Or in sports, there's usually a chant that has a tribal beat to it to enhance that tribal energy.
100%.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
And where you feel that ignite in your body, if you actually pay attention, is at the base of your spine.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that's when you feel grounded. So people who have a hard time feeling a sense of home have a really hard time feeling safe and grounded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She also says, Carolyn Myss says, that when the tribal chakra is not activated or balanced, it can affect our entire immune system. That when we don't feel safe, our whole immune system is threatened. And this is going to get a little big, but I have to share this because it blew my freaking mind.
Do it. Take us there, Taylor.
So I was reading this book during quarantine in March of this year, and there's an actual paragraph. I'm just going to read it, or
Which
I'm just going to
book?
read the sentence. The Anatomy of Spirit by Carolyn Myss. She's a PhD. The tribal chakra, root chakra, represents our connection to both positive and negative group experiences. Epidemics are a negative group experience to which we become energetically susceptible if our own personal first or root chakra fears and attitudes are similar to those held by the cultural's overall first chakra. So like in feeling this just rampant like fear that's sweeping through everything, our own fear gets activated by that.
That is good. Okay.
Which I feel like I've witnessed.
Oh, 100%.
So I've learned, we'll talk about tone scales at some point, but I went through this school. That's what we'll call it at the moment. I went through this school and they said, we know what the world population, so on this tone, where they sit, like where the world population sits. And it's at a -4. I know this is very abstract sounding, but -4 equals fear. So when you meet someone in their personality or you're meeting a stranger for the first time, if you meet them with fear, you can win them over through a series of tactics, say in sales or in, wanting to connect or create
or in
rapport with someone or politics.
Yeah.
You meet them with fear because fear is where they'll feel like you understand them. And then you raise the vibration.
Like
from there.
showing them your fear or making them feel fear?
So the way to connect is to become friends with them through fear. Like attracts
So you're like
like.
trauma bonding.
You're trauma bonding. So not saying that this is what you should do.
No,
I'm
no,
just
no.
saying
But it's just
Yeah.
what works.
it's
This is
what
one
works.
idea.
This is how sales, I've been through a lot of sales schools before. And this
Sales is imagine the worst case scenario. Now I'm going to offer you salvation from that.
Solution.
Yep.
Yeah, the world's
absolutely.
ending. Here's your survival kit.
But you bringing up the epidemic though.
Well, and we haven't even gotten to the...
Oh my gosh.
Because if the root chakra being unbalanced affects our entire immune system, then when societies as a whole don't feel connected to their tribe and don't feel safe in their own tribe, the overall immune system is compromised.
Immune system.
She says...
I'm just pointing out that word because, we're all talking about this today in 2020 with all of
this
the
was
stuff
written
going
in the
on
early
with health.
90s.
Yeah.
But I read what she was saying about epidemics when we were literally shut down for a global pandemic.
Wow.
So then she says, viral and other epidemics are very much a reflection of both the current social issues and the cultural tribe and the health of the social tribe's immune system, in quotes.
Yeah. Well, this is a huge thing that's not being talked about in today's culture of COVID and all of that stuff, is that our immune systems are equipped to deal with the type of stuff that we're going through right now. And I think that there's a major psychological operation going on designed to affect our energy bodies, because what comes in through the thoughts goes into the body. And so when we program ourselves through endless hours of social media and mainstream news and all of that stuff, it's affecting our body. It's affecting our energy. And then how it will physically manifest is by affecting our root chakra. That's where all of this is going with the mind programming element of society. But specifically on the root chakra, it is blocked by fear, as you've laid out. But fear is the ultimate thing that will corrupt the entire chakra system.
Yep.
If we could
the base.
establish a sense of safety, which feels nearly impossible with our society the way it is now, it has to be personal. Our immune systems could heal themselves.
Yeah.
But so she says, as an example, because this was not even in 2020, this was the early 90s, and she was looking back at different rises in plagues and diseases throughout history. And she gave the example of the immense economic depression of the 1930s and the rise of polio.
Wow.
And how when our safety in our ability to provide for life's necessities was challenged, especially as like a whole of our whole national tribe, these diseases can come up. And she gave example after example of when this has happened throughout history. And it made me think about how COVID started in China. In all of last year, I was seeing the riots and
In Hong
upheaval in Hong Kong.
Yeah, it's a big thing.
So there's unrest in that tribal unit, and then this can come forth. And I've also heard many times in the last few years in our own country, in America, of how we've never been more divided And so it was just, if you look at it in terms of root chakra and immunity, and us not feeling cohesive with our tribe, it was just setting us up to be vulnerable to illness like that.
100%.
Isn't that crazy?
And also, I'll just interject the angle too that the media does this to us. And I want to say that they do it consciously, but even if they do it unconsciously, this is what they do. They attack us on fear because they know that we will, in one hand, we will respond, which means that we'll spend hours watching their content, which means we'll watch all of their ads and they'll get money because their whole game is about ratings. So fear is what draws us in on an energy level.
I don't understand why people haven't, why so many people haven't woken up to that yet.
People are waking up to it.
Yeah, people are waking up.
But I also people are waking up.
Okay. I went doom and gloom. Sorry, everyone. Everyone
I totally
is waking
agree.
up.
I actually agree with where you're coming from. Yeah,
but I see that too.
Okay, thank you.
There's
I know I'm not
sides.
thank you. Yes, there is
it's triggering.
both
I think it's triggering the wake
Yeah.
up because of last week's podcast. We talked about the call of adventure. So
Yeah.
this whole shakeup is waking people up. But
I think when
it
I
does
say
consume people too.
When I say that specifically,
I'm just nervous about overall.
I don't understand why people still watch the news and believe it.
Yeah, right.
That's what I'm saying.
Sure,
Why
sure.
haven't people really questioned why are people still, they might say verbally with their friends and family, I don't, the news has been really rotten, but yet they still go and watch it every single day. And I'm where's the I'm scratching my head because I don't understand.
too.
Stimulates the fear.
You're giving me the idea of that what you were just saying is that you can bond with people over fear. So if you are in a state of fear, then when you watch fear coming through the TV, you feel related. You feel at home, even though it's a very negative place to be. But see, this is the whole conversation of chakras, because when you raise your energy beyond fear, then all of a sudden you have the ability to feel the contrast of media that's coming at you with fear. Because now you're not in that state. So now love feels much more at home. And then you start seeing, ooh, this doesn't feel like love at all.
I don't want any part of that. I don't want to watch that.
This
Ew.
feels terrible.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
I think
You use it as a bonding skill.
we do. I was going to say, I think we should blast through all the chakras because we're already
there's so
at
much to do.
35, 40 minutes into
I know,
the podcast.
that's what I'm saying. This could be a long, we could,
Yeah.
I mean,
do a
we'll see
part
how
two.
far we get. We could
Maybe
do,
we could get to the heart and then do a part 2.
I would love to do a whole overview and then let's really break down the ones that we want to dive into.
So sacral chakra is the next one up on the rung. And if we're following the rainbow, the next color is orange. And that's what's associated. So if you think of that kind of basin that's created between your hips, that's your sacral bowl. And in the center of that, that's where your sacral chakra is. So if we think about particularly feminine anatomy, there is a void in that part of the body, which is the womb. And as the energy works its way up, whatever is going to take shape in terms of our life's purpose, in terms of our behaviors, in terms of things that we're going to create and allow to flow into our life, takes form in that sacral chakra area. Like creating a baby. Any sort of creation that's going to come forth out of our life it happens there, or at least it begins there.
Yeah. It is a very, very creative center. Also blocked by guilt.
Yes.
This one is specifically blocked by guilt. So guilt is what will shut down the energy from moving further up your spine. And it's interesting to me, when I first came across that idea, I immediately associated it with how Christianity at least made me feel incredibly guilty for my sexuality. It was like Christianity and kind of, the way I was raised was that you don't talk about sex, you don't have sex, you don't do it, you don't joke with your friends. It's like totally taboo. But then at the same time, it was always with the idea that God condones a sex life between a husband and wife, which, that makes sense. But if your entire conversation is 95% don't talk about it, it's always taboo, then there's not even a healthy conversation for now married couples.
There needs to be
in
a
my
purity
opinion.
culture episode. I'm going to put that.
Yeah. But I think if you're affecting people by making them feel guilty about their sexuality. It's another huge way to control them.
Ooh, yeah.
And sexuality is associated with that sacral chakra because that is how we create new life and bring it into the world.
Yeah. And you can think about it in the terms of passion. And there is sexual passion, but there's life passion.
Yes.
There is career passion. What is it that you are striving for?
Oh, you and I were talking, KK, about this creative project that you want to embark on. And you were saying it feels like a baby that you're going to have to give birth to.
Oh my God, I did say that.
And I was like, yeah, because that energy is in the same place in the body.
yeah, like
Yeah.
I'm having a baby.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a book baby.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a baby.
Exactly. And it all starts there. And if we don't trust, or if we don't have faith in our creative endeavors and these things that are being fruited within us, we can really struggle with control issues in our lives, power and control issues. I saw this a lot in myself. You shared this quote with me recently. I think it was Richard Rohr. The opposite of faith is not doubt, but control.
Yeah.
Or something like that. And
That's a good one.
I realized when I was being a control freak and trying to micromanage everything in my life, it's because I wasn't trusting life's flow.
I told her that quote because I immediately thought of her because she
Because she's such a control freak.
No, because she told me about a year and a half ago that she was really starting to, the word hustle was triggering her.
Yes.
And I was like, ooh, I feel that because if someone rushes me or I feel this pressure to hustle, I will deliberately like feet in the ground. No one's moving me. I will move at my own pace.
Oh, yeah.
You will not rush me and you will not make me hustle. And so when you said that, I was like, ooh, I feel that like deep within my soul. I don't even like to be around people that hustle.
Right.
Like, I'm like,
Yeah.
you need to calm down.
It's
Yeah,
a
interesting.
control issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's totally control. And I don't like
It relates to that sacral and that
Icky,
orange.
icky.
Yeah, and there's a power dynamic with that too. I think the root chakra is incredibly active in that person as well. The need to
Right.
dominate and
yeah.
force, it's not necessarily, I connect with what you're saying because I'm all about flow.
Yeah.
I used to be much more of a hustler in the sense of in my music career. I was like, go, 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 doing 14-hour days in my studio,
Shoot.
always traveling, doing so much stuff. And then eventually I was like, nope, I'm a flow guy now. And I still do my thing, but I'm like, don't rush me.
Yeah.
Don't tell me what to do. I'm just going to flow my way through it.
If I feel rushed, I immediately it's like my body shuts down. It's like,
Totally.
I don't know what to do now.
Yeah.
Anyway,
That oh my gosh, that's like a whole Enneagram conversation too.
yeah, probably.
Solar plexus.
Solar plexus.
Moving on up the spine.
Up to the third chakra.
The third chakra associated with the color yellow.
Are we at the belly button?
It's just above the belly button,
Okay.
actually. It's kind of like above the belly button, below the ribs.
All right.
I thought that the solar plexus was associated with orange.
Sacral is orange.
Sacral is orange.
Oh,
And
this
Are you
solar
yellow.
plexus is yellow.
Yellow.
Yeah.
That's really, okay, cool.
We have to follow the
For some
rainbow.
reason, I think of orange, but go on.
You're wrong.
It's
Apparently.
it's also in this is like a whole nother dimension of how energy works in our body, but like the core star in our body, which is
The soul
kind of like
star.
associated with the soul. Yeah.
Yeah.
It tends to be in that area too.
Yeah,
So
and
to me,
this-
it makes sense that the solar plexus chakra has to do with our sense of self, our sense of identity, our sense of self-worth, confidence, and personal integrity.
Yep.
And personal honor.
And willpower.
Yes.
The
yes.
the solar plexus is all about willpower as well as all of those other amazing things you said. But the other thing I like about solar plexus is it's very specific when it's talking about the light, the sun, the energy, the heat. This is where, like in yoga, this is where we can build what they call the inner fire. There's even like a breathwork technique called the breath of fire or the dragon's breath. And that whole thing is pumping your stomach basically super fast. Just to give you a little audio sample, I guess, of it. It's like
Do
when you
it.
breathe through your nose rapidly, it sounds like this. And now I got snot all over my mic. But that's the breath of fire. And what it's doing is it's pumping your
I see
solar
your
plexus.
diaphragm going like
yeah,
whoosh,
because your
whoosh,
whole
whoosh,
diaphragm
whoosh.
is moving in and out rapidly. So yeah, this is where the inner fire starts to come from, and willpower. And so I think this is really interesting. You have the root chakra, the sacral chakra, and then the willpower chakra. So it's interesting how people that are, let's just say, addicted to eating too much food, they don't always have the ability to regulate their food intake or to regulate it through exercise or whatever it is. But that's because the energy may just be in the root and second chakra and now not getting to the willpower center.
It has to work its way up.
Yeah.
And another filter to look at it is, if we think about the pyramid, the root is the tribe. The sacral is more of like our one-on-one intimate connections. That's where we have that sexual creativity. And then we shrink it down even more to the self. Tribe, one-on-one, like close connections, and then ourself in terms of like how we relate to the world.
Yeah.
This little thing I'm looking at, diagram, it says esteem needs or self-esteem.
Yep.
Yeah.
I have over here that the solar plexus chakra is blocked by shame.
Yes. I am not good, or I am not good enough. That
And,
that lives there.
Without pulling this into one specific political thing, it's amazing how much shame is going on in today's culture.
Oh my
It's
God.
rampant as a whole.
Everywhere.
And Brene
Yeah.
Brown has taught us a lot about
Oh yeah.
that.
The shame of today.
Yeah.
Shame of today.
It hurts my heart.
It's bad, man. It's bad. And that's why you gotta get your chakras activated. Because if you have your chakras activated and your energy system is whole and coherent, you'll be able to deal with that much healthier, I think.
Yeah.
But the shame culture that we live in today is atrocious.
Yeah.
And it's everywhere. It's on all sides. That's why I'm trying to refrain from saying one specific thing going on in the world, but it is just everywhere.
Yeah.
And I think that all of the stuff we've been talking about, from media to social media to just political movements and everything, it's amplifying this shame culture.
When I was a child, I used to think adults had it all together and were nice beings. And like, I was like, I had this just like almost godlike respect for adults in general.
Yeah.
And now that I'm an adult, I'm just like, nobody knows what.
Yep.
Like
Nobody
everyone's
knows what's going on.
No.
Not like everyone. No one knows what. And I want to say everyone's doing the best they can, but I don't know about that. I want to say that, but I do think educating ourselves with things like this. I remember being in the church and in Sunday school, they would say you have to put on the armor of God. Remember that, like the breastplate of righteousness and the sword of the Spirit, and I don't remember the other ones. But this kind of, for me, has been learning about the chakras. It's helped me when I'm in the world and I'm being either presented with the feelings of shame or aggression or control, or my heart's opening, or I feel like crying out of like pure love because I saw a cute little bird. I know where I am within my body, and it's such an amazing tool to use for myself in the world.
Well, and there's that whole word, the buzzword going around these days of embodiment, all these embodiment practices and embodiment retreats and things like that. Embodiment to me is becoming aware. Like when your consciousness does raise through all of these chakras, you can become aware of the state of your body. I have to say something really quick. This is what's so offensive to me about the culture around COVID, is that it's challenging our sovereignty. It's saying that you don't know the state of your body, and therefore you must wear a mask, or someday it's going to be get a vaccine, or blah, 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 because you don't know your body. And I find that to be offensive, because I do know my body. And you can talk science all day long and say, well, there's this, this, and that. And I'm not going to say that science is wrong. I'm not even saying that I doubt that conversation. But what I am saying is that I know my body. You can't tell me that you, who are not living in my body, know it better than me. And that you're now going to make policies and practices and societal changes that I have to abide by simply because you say you know your body more than me.
Yeah, the personal integrity should be a factor in the larger conversation.
1,000%. Also, the whole conversation about immunity.
But when it's driven in fear,
and
then we don't trust other people and their own knowledge. Yeah, it's so tricky.
Yeah.
The primary fears of the solar plexus chakra fears of rejection, criticism, looking foolish, failing to meet one's responsibilities. They're all fears related to physical appearance, like ones of like obesity, baldness, aging, or that others will discover our secrets. Those are all tied to the identity we have in the solar plexus chakra.
Very interesting.
That reminds me of staying in hiding. Because if you stay in hiding of your true self, you'll never reach the heart.
Not letting your light shine, your core light,
Gotta
your
do
core
it.
starlight.
Gotta let your
solar,
light shine.
Your
soul
solar.
star. It's your soul star.
Exactly, your soul star. That's where it lives. What does she say? Oh, self-understanding and acceptance. I'm reading Carolyn Myss right now. Self-understanding and acceptance, the bond we form with ourselves, is in many ways the most crucial spiritual challenge we face. She also says later on, no one is born with healthy self-esteem. We must earn this quality in the process of living as we face our challenges one at a time.
That's deep. That's great.
Yeah. And so I actually had been feeling a lack of self-confidence. I don't know why. I just really did not feel the energy around that center of my body. And so in order to kind of counter that, not that the color yellow has inherent magical properties, but at least when I associated with it, I could remind myself of my own honor and dignity. I got this bright yellow water bottle
Nice.
that
Lovely.
I carry, that's with me all the time. So that was kind of my way of incorporating that that chakra knowledge into my life to help me balance myself out a little
Love
bit.
it. Love it.
Love that. Now I know if I see your yellow water bottle.
Yeah.
So cool.
It's so cool.
Should we go to the next?
Heart. Let's move up
Heart.
to the heart. So the heart is the bridge between
Yes.
our earth energies and our more cosmic energies. The earth comes up from the bottom of the spine, the cosmic comes down from the top, and they converge at the heart.
Yes.
It's also called the filter chakra because as the energy comes up as either shaped by fear or safety from the root, when it gets to the heart will filter out things that are based in safety, and they'll continue to work their way up. If they're based in fear, they won't make it through the filter, and it'll just stay down in that kind of bottom survival area.
Yeah.
It won't be able to get to expression, which is the level just above the heart, to actually come out. Or if it does, it's still in that, kind of fear filter when they're not lined up.
yeah.
We can talk about that, but
Yeah. I also, so I have here that the heart is blocked by grief. So sadness and grief can really shut down your heart. Yeah, I don't
It's
know if I
also
have much
green
more.
associated with
Yes,
the color.
Yeah, the color green.
which
Yep.
I love because I love green. I love the planet green. That's green.
Yeah.
And I love the trees, and I don't know, I associate the two together kind of like I know my heart's most happy when I'm outside and in nature and connected with nature and Mother Gaia. And I feel like there's definitely something to do with like our heart, not only being connected with ourselves, but also with Mother Earth. I know, or Earth, let's just call it Earth, with Earth itself, which is the actual, if we think about it, she sustains us and our life.
the essence of life.
Exactly.
The essence of life correlates with love. It's the essence of God as a whole. And so the green and the love and the heart, that's where all of that lives. It's where our compassion comes out of. It's where our trust and connection and empathy comes out of.
Yeah.
And also our love for ourselves. It's not just our love for other people, it's our love for ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's where if we are refusing to forgive an act of betrayal in our life, that's the chakra that's going to be compromised, is the heart. Forgiveness energy lives in the heart.
I think
chakra.
that word forgiveness, I have spoken more about forgiveness in the last year than I think the entire rest of my life. Because I find it fascinating, again, going back to the third chakra and how we live in this insane shame culture nowadays. It's evident that people are not in their heart because of their lack of forgiveness. Forgiveness, people get triggered by. And they get triggered by it because they associate forgiveness with weakness. That I'm going to forgive you and just say it's cool that you like totally shat on me or whatever. But that's not what forgiveness is. Forgiveness actually comes from the deepest sense of strength that you could possibly imagine.
Really is.
Because it's literally not condoning somebody else's behavior, but it's saying that now that this situation is in the past, I am going to no longer keep it in my mind space. I'm going to release it. I'm going to transmute it. I'm going to let it go. And then you re-enter the rest of your life from that renewed, refreshed perspective. It doesn't mean that if somebody, stole your car and they're like your BFF, that you're just supposed to forgive them and like let them keep your car. Like justice is a thing, and finding, being aware of how somebody wronged you, it can be a healthy thing to be aware of that in the future sense. Maybe you don't trust that person anymore. Maybe they're not in your life anymore. However, if you hold this inner bitterness, this like inner rage and anger and vengefulness and spite, all of those things are going to destroy you, not the other person. So it's about forgiving that, maybe from the root chakra up, from the anger and the upset that trauma has created in you. You forgive that. And then whatever you do with your logical mind is kind of up to the guidance of your spirit. I think at that point, does that person remain in your life? Do you cut them out of your life? Like whatever that looks like is maybe a separate conversation. But the Buddha says that bitterness and having an unforgiving heart is like picking up a hot coal to try to throw at somebody, and you just end up burning yourself. So that's why forgiveness is important. Forgiveness is not about the other person.
No.
Forgiveness is about your inner being and your state that you carry around on a daily basis.
Yeah.
So
And
that's my rant on forgiveness.
Loving yourself enough to not let the toxicness of unforgiveness like rot your heart chakra from the inside
100%.
out.
Yeah, and in today's world, we see it being played out in all kinds of political ways with all sorts of conversations. But the biggest proof to me that the people who are claiming to be woke, which by the way, I want to talk about that sometime.
An episode about
just literally the word woke versus being spiritually awakened. The woke people are so strange to me because they think that they have all of this stuff going on. Their chakras are open. They see the world clearly, and they're trying to shake you awake to be woke like them about the way that they see things. But the biggest tell from any spiritual-minded person that these people are not actually coming from an altruistic, spiritually enlightened place is that they hold no forgiveness in their heart for you if you are not woke. That is the ultimate tell. How can you be actually trying to teach me about spiritually minded stuff when you don't even come at me with your own energy of forgiveness of the fact that I might not be aware? Yeah.
acceptance, which is also a heart chakra.
I feel like you said the heart is empathy. Yeah. And empathy is being gentle with someone's point of view. It's being kind. Like you can't teach someone to be kind. It literally, it forms inside of you and it flows out of you. And I love this quote by Jesus about forgiveness. He said, "Forgive 7 times 70." And that just, for us, that's, okay, I know how to do math. But at the same time, the idea around
How many times do I have to forgive this person?
Yeah.
right, it doesn't matter. You
Infinite, yeah.
keep forgiving and you
just keep doing
keep
it.
forgiving and you keep being kind and you keep your arms open and be gentle with people because we're all humans. And as Ram Dass says, we're all just walking each other home. And that is all we can do. And that's living from your heart. It's being kind.
It really is. And people associate kindness with weakness, but it's not. Kindness actually comes from the deepest sense of strength. And I forget exactly where what I'm thinking about comes from, but it's like this idea of the warrior. When someone actually knows their strength, that is when they become kind. Because a warrior, when he is he's not in fear of anybody or anything. He knows that he could slice you in half a second and destroy you. He ends up becoming kind because now his goal is not to fight to dominate. His goal is he's going to protect, in this sense, I'm talking about mythology. So he's going to protect truth at all costs. However, he's going to be kind. And the kindness comes from the fact that he knows beyond a shadow of a doubt, he can protect himself. There's no ego in that.
Yeah.
I think we should maybe move up one more.
Ooh,
Yes,
are you
I
looking
think
at
we
the
should.
Tao?
I was looking up the Tao because that is in the Tao Te Ching. I read it. I'm trying to find it. It was like later on.
What is it?
The pretty much what he just said. How like the
rock?
the warrior, the strongest. Something about like the strongest warrior is the one that knows the most kindness.
I
or
know
something
in
like
the
that.
Tao it says that the great leader always resides or always is at the lowest point. Just as the ocean resides below the land, it's because it's the greatest. It actually exalts those that are less than them. So they're always at the lowest point. The ones that are the greatest are going to be at the lowest
And the
point.
first shall be last, and the last shall be first. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a type of humility, I think.
Yeah.
When someone actually knows their strength, they actually end up manifesting a very humble, kind perspective.
they don't have to prove anything.
Yeah. So
People who have something
The
to
ocean
prove
has nothing to prove to the
yeah.
land.
Yep.
Because it
Absolutely
knows
nothing.
it can devour it.
Exactly. Same with fire. And when I was on tour with just a quick story with Rihanna, we were on tour with Kanye West at one point, and it was Kanye and NERD and Lupe Fiasco, and it was an amazing tour. So there was all of these people that would come through our backstage area. They were like friends of different camps. And the most interesting thing came up all the time is that I would meet these dudes that were like, how they would approach me is like, man, I'm like working on my hip hop game, yo. And then they just start dropping bombs, like I'm this big on YouTube and I got this many things and blah, blah, blah. And they start like trying to sell themselves to me. Meanwhile, they've never even asked me who I am. They don't know what I do. I'm not telling them who I am. I'm not telling them what I do. But I instantly started learning that the people that talk the most generally have the least going on. And the people that talk the least are generally the people that could make or break your career. And that's like a fact I learned in the music business. Is the people that really are plugged in and have a lot of power in that industry, they wear sweatpants and they don't talk about what's going on. I'm serious.
Well,
they dress casual.
I think that's the perfect interlude to talk about the expression
Throat
chakra, the throat
Hey,
chakra.
you like that?
Which is the one just a little ways up from the heart chakra. It's associated with the color sky blue, that lighter blue color. It has to do with as this energy works its way up and comes through our heart, we actually are able to verbalize and express all of this interactivity that's been happening. The area is not actually the throat, like the center of the throat. It's more of the V, that little indentation.
Like behind the collarbone?
Yeah, like the clavicle area at the base, kind of like at the top of the shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one time I had to go to court, which was like the most terrifying day of my life. It was to...
What did you do?
It was to speak on behalf of a family member. And vouch for their, goodness or whatever it was in court. And it was terrifying because I didn't want to say something wrong and have them thrown under the bus. And what I was advised to do is to wear the color blue because when people see you wearing the color blue, they automatically associate it with honesty and trust you more.
What?
Which ties into the throat chakra.
Is that who?
Yeah, psychologically.
Really?
Yeah.
Like power, like
We
the color
associate
red
the color
is like
blue.
power, like
Yeah.
a power color.
Yeah. And the color
Okay.
blue we associate with truthfulness and honesty and authenticity. Yeah.
Blocked by lies. The third
Exactly.
Throat chakra, blocked by lies.
Yep. And it has to do with our personal expression. An overactive throat chakra is someone who will not stop talking.
Yeah. But also I would like to maybe say that means that you said this, that their chakras out of balance.
Exactly.
Which means
Exactly.
that maybe the Kundalini, the actual consciousness, is not quite raised into this chakra yet. So it's behaving very unconsciously.
Erratically.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like that. Unconscious behavior. They don't
Yeah.
even know they're doing it.
And also, it doesn't just have to do with verbal expression. What I've been learning to name my emotions more and not repress what I'm feeling, but express my emotions. And I talked about this a little earlier on, is that I can tell when I'm starting to repress something, that I feel like a tightness and a lock on my throat,
Yep.
especially the base of my throat. It starts to feel like a tension, a little, not necessarily painful, but I'm definitely aware of a locking, closing, tense feeling. And I'm now realizing, oh, that's my throat chakra
Yep.
trying really, 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 really hard to contain a lot of energy.
Yeah.
And maybe if I just express that emotion or put words to it or let some tears come out, talk about the sensation that's happening, it dissipates and it ends up being so much healthier. It doesn't stay locked in my body.
Yeah, I think the crux that you're talking about there is speaking your truth or speaking truth. That's the difference between just someone who says a lot of words and actually feels that they've expressed themselves clearly, is being able to speak truth from their soul level.
Yeah.
If you're the type of person that has no problem talking, but you never feel understood, that's probably because you're not opening your throat chakra. There's a truth block. So you might have all of the words in the world, but you're still not feeling like you've expressed yourself clearly. That's because your throat chakra is actually blocked.
Yeah.
And I feel like some people probably over talk to avoid actually being seen.
Yeah.
Because they're hiding, a sadness. So they act excited or happy all the time, but deeply.
Like nodding towards me.
Oh, am I?
No. But I felt because yes, I relate to that.
Oh,
yeah.
feel
I
that.
didn't even know.
Yeah.
I wasn't
Wow.
doing.
Well,
Ooh.
that's something that
You-
again the Enneagram has taught me
Really?
is
I was honestly thinking about
Yeah.
Robin Williams, to be honest, because he was so
Yeah.
a lot of comedians are so
Yeah.
happy and excited,
Oh, yeah.
but deeply they're, and
Yeah.
a lot of clients I see obviously are, a lot of them will pretend they're happy. And so they'll talk and talk and talk. And I'm like,
Oh God, yeah.
calm down.
Yes.
What's really going on?
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Yeah.
And then they'll slow down and then they'll start really revealing their true feelings.
There's maybe an element to this chakra too that has to do with listening. Because as I think about some of the teachers I've
And that would
had
make
in my
sense because
life.
the energy is very near the ears on the
Yeah.
physical body.
Yeah, but it's like this feeling of communication. When you feel super balanced and you're maturing spiritually and you're in this deeper rooted sense of identity, I feel that you become quieter because there's more peace. The more peace you have in your body and your being, the less neurosis you have.
Yes.
And what you're talking about, KK, is pure neurosis. It's pure unconscious, unfiltered. Every thought that's going through my neurotic mind is just pouring out my face. And that is very unconscious behavior. So I think as you become more conscious and more, you're raising your energy more and more, your consciousness is raising. The byproduct of this is peace in the inner state, but then the outward expression of that is more silence, more comfortable just being.
Yeah.
And more comfortable being with somebody else. So maybe there's an element of listening that's also associated with this chakra,
Yeah.
that when you're in this rooted place, then you can actually hold space to communicate with people, not just be the one talking all the time.
Well, you can show up authentically. And that's the authentic expression. You can just be without having to create this mask and veil of words around yourself to try to appear a certain way.
Yeah, that's what people are doing all the time.
Two quotes come to mind. Was it Ram Dass that said this? The quieter you become, the more you can hear. Or was that Wayne Dyer?
Don't know.
One of them said, the quieter you become, the more you can hear. And I really love that. But it also reminds me of that scripture, be still
And
know that I am God.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and the only way to
that.
be still is also to quieten your mind, quieten your voice, silence, like become friends with silence. And silence is a hard one to become friends with.
It is. And
Yeah.
meditation is a great practice for that.
Yeah.
Because we all have what the Eastern philosophers talk about, the monkey mind. We have this overactive, chattery mind. But before I go down that rabbit hole, maybe we should go to the third eye
I
chakra.
have one more thought about the throat chakra, and then I love because it's a natural flow up to the third eye.
Love it.
But if you're listening to this and you feel like your throat chakra is out of balance or unwell, you may experience indecisiveness, inability to communicate. Judgment and criticism are also associated with an unbalanced throat chakra. And a way to help bring some good energy and attention and awareness to your throat chakra is singing or humming, like in the car, in the shower, because vibration is just another physical form of energy and manifestation. So if we hum or sing, I mean, I'm touching it right now. I'm touching that V in my throat and I can feel the vibration. And so if we sing or hum and we are aware of the vibration that's happening there, that's going to help balance out that throat chakra.
Also, when I was trying to really balance mine many years ago, my therapist gave me the idea of journaling. Because when you journal and you're just purely, putting your heart down on a piece of paper without any judgment, I think that is one of the biggest ways we can open up our throat chakra. To practice speaking in truth. Yeah. Because if the throat chakra is blocked by lies, then it's freed by truth.
Yes.
So you got to get in the practice and the flow of speaking truth.
In the privacy of your own notebook.
Exactly.
Which is a very safe place to do it.
Yep.
Third eye.
So
Third eye. Let's do it. Let's move on up.
So, center of the forehead or just above the meeting of the brows. The color associated with it is indigo, that kind of blue-purple merging together. The third eye is also associated with like you said, the pineal gland in the brain, which is, if you were to go back into the center of the brain, that's right where that gland lives. It's associated with the divine within ourselves. When the third eye is opened, they say that's when you get the wisdom to see through the veil of reality. You see things the way God sees them, the way Spirit sees them. You have wisdom and understanding.
Yeah. It says, what I'm looking at says,
Yes.
blocked by illusion. And that's exactly what you're talking about. When the third eye is open, you're able to see through the illusion. And illusion can be many, many things, but to try to keep it attainable for the average person out there, it can be like misdirection, or if someone is trying to lie to you, you might be able to see through their lie because your third eye is open. You can see clearly, you can feel clearly that they're not speaking in truth. You can feel that their throat chakra is not operating in truth. So the third eye is able to perceive through lies and illusion.
I also think the idea of being able to, this is wild.
Throw it out there.
But like astral project, which I'm not somebody who can do that. I know a lot of people can. I don't know how much time I've actually tried, but I think all that happens, that intuitive stuff happens through the third eye, being able to see into another dimension or to explore different dimensions. I know that lucid dreaming comes easy to me. And dreaming, I have lots of dreams. But I have a really quick thought about the third eye.
Yeah.
Yes.
So back in the day when Jesus, died and his resurrection happened, it said that the veil in the temple was torn.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yep.
So I was always captivated by that. I was like, well, what's a veil in the temple? And I remember someone saying, oh, it's this big giant carpet that they would have hung up in a temple. And it was like pretty much indestructible. Like you could not break it or tear it.
Insanely thick.
And so when he died and rose again, it was torn. And so for me as an adult, now understanding like chakras and intuition and my connection to spirit, being able to see, this is totally left field, but do you think that veil being broken was the catalyst for being able to see through the illusion, through our third eye, being able to be open?
Yep.
Like a metaphor for the physical veil.
The
Yes.
physical veil, we can now see past it.
See kind of what's transpiring in the spiritual world.
So this is another wild thing. But when I was on mushrooms one time, I've only done mushrooms once, everyone. So, but I did do it, and I was speaking to spirit because it's if you do it in a set and setting way and in a spiritual way, not like you're at a rave and you're at a party. If you do it in a very spiritual, intentional way, it's a very, very intense, but also connecting practice.
Yeah.
It really connects you with spirit. And I actually had a conversation with Holy Spirit, God. And I said, what am I seeing? This is the most wild thing I've ever seen in my life, because it was amazing. And I heard this voice inside of me say, you're seeing past the veil. And it was just a different dimension.
Yeah.
You know, it's like wild. Yeah.
You're making me think of a quick little exercise that we could do. It's just super lighthearted, but if you close your eyes, and then if I say to you, imagine a soccer ball that's white with little black circles, just imagine it, just look at it, see it, maybe hold it in your hand. That's your third eye. And then if your eyes are closed still and I say, so on the count of 3, just in your mind space, say the word love. Don't say it out loud. 1, 2, 3. That's your third eye.
So one of my favorite comedian, Pete Holmes, he does this thing in one of his most recent specials where he has everyone in the audience sing the happy birthday song in their head silently.
Okay.
He's like, okay, on the count of 3, everybody sing. And he kind of nods along and he's like,
Yeah.
and then at the end, he's like, so who heard that?
Yeah.
And it's his way of
I
kind
love
of pointing at opening up people's third eye. There's something
Totally.
going on inside of you that you just experienced and none of us did, which is really playful.
Yeah, the hip hop guy KRS-One. If anybody wants to type this into YouTube, you're gonna get some fun and wild talks. Type in KRS-One. The hip hop dude. He is so incredible. Man, I can't give a good synopsis of him, but you're gonna love it if you just type it into YouTube.
I'm gonna
type
do it.
KRS-One ONE, and then
like spell out one.
Oh, you have to spell out
the
one.
number
Okay.
one.
Okay.
KRS-One, and then look at some of his talks. He has some 30, 45 minute, hour long talks, and he's a hip hop dude, but then he got super into spirituality, and he's blasting people's minds open, and it's so awesome.
It's so fun.
And he has actually the person I learned that exercise from.
Oh, yeah.
Of saying a word in your mind, because then he's going into that. He's like, what is that?
Well, I used to teach meditation for these corporate offices, and I was really sensitive about the language I use. I would never say third eye because I knew that was an instant turn off to a lot of people. So I would say mind's eye, but I would always direct them when they close their eyes to focus their attention to the center of their forehead, right above the eyebrows, and to open the mind. And let's go into our mind's eye and let's visualize. And then I'd go into a guided meditation or something. But it's funny how we get triggered in those words, but that's your mind's eye. It's the images that you visualize when your eyes close through that. It's very different than when we did the love. You said, think of the word love. I see that in one image, not through two lenses.
Exactly,
It's one lens.
Yeah, and that's also why I call it the first eye, because we have two eyes, which help us give depth, but I only see one reality. I'm here, I'm in one place, but I see depth and dimension to it through the two eyes. But the other word that I like to remind people of when talking about the third eye is imagination.
Yeah.
I fully believe that what we just, culturally call imagination is exactly the third eye.
Yeah.
What you see in your imagination is
root
the
word
third eye.
image.
Yeah.
Imagination.
Yeah. Yeah. Image nation. The reality of the mental image.
Yeah, the mental image.
Yeah. So to
that's
me,
awesome.
imagination is one of the biggest tells that your third eye is opening or opened.
You're able to see something that might not be exactly in front of you.
Yeah. You can peer into a whole nother version of reality.
Yeah.
That's
And what
based on
did
thought.
Einstein say about imagination?
What did he say about imagination?
Please tell us.
Well, I'm going to butcher it, but he said something like,
He said something? Just kidding.
he said something like imagination is more important than knowing.
Right. Yeah. More. Yes. Yes. Yeah. I don't remember the exact quote either, but he's basically saying imagination is more important than facts and figures and knowing everything perfectly.
Yep.
And when the third eye chakra, or also called brow chakra, is out of balance, we tend to obsess with analytical thinking. And we tend to feel, if we feel confusion, we're obsessed about analytical thinking. We can't think outside the box, and everything has to be facts and figures. That's associated with
Amazing.
imbalance in the third eye.
I think the only last thing I have in my mind on this subject is Nikola Tesla.
Yes.
This is a wonderful example of how powerful your mind's eye actually is. One of my favorite facts about Nikola Tesla is that when he was creating his devices, he would create them in his mind without ever drawing anything down on a piece of paper, without ever putting a formula or an equation on a piece of paper. He said that he would start to mentally take it apart and look with his mind's eye to see exactly how it worked. And he would do tests in his mind's eye. So he would sometimes spend months or years using his imagination to physically, or I guess through his imagination, design.
Yes.
And then when he feels like he finally figured it out, he would then turn it into a physical product and it would work.
Yes.
And that's the power
hashed
of
it
our
out.
mind.
Yeah. So in one of my favorite books, it's not really a spiritual book, but it kind of started me on this path. It's called Psycho-Cybernetics. And it was written by Dr. Maxwell Maltz, who was a plastic surgeon in the 40s and 50s. He realized that he would perform plastic surgery on someone and they would say, "Oh, you've made all the difference in the world." They'd go out and change their life. Or he would perform plastic surgery on someone and they'd say, "Well, yeah, I see my nose is different, but you haven't changed anything." And he started realizing that the image, the self-image we have in our mind's eye is so much more powerful than the reality that we're facing in front of us.
Yep.
So he talked about this study where they had a basketball team divided into 3 groups. And they had the control group that didn't do anything. They had the basketball team that would practice these exercises 5 hours a day for a set amount of time, like 3 weeks or something. And then they had the third group, which would practice these same exercises, sitting in a chair in their mind. Only in their mind, they would run through the same basketball exercises. After the duration of the study, the team that had practiced in person improved 25%. The group that had practiced in their mind the same exercises for the same amount of time had improved 23%.
That's amazing. So cool. Wow. I love that.
I know.
Yeah.
And he also talked about, or I've heard, I don't know if he did it in this book, but I've heard that Michael Phelps, the gold medalist swimmer, his coach would tell him every time he would swim to imagine swimming faster than he had done the previous time.
That's so awesome.
And it changes the actual physical reality.
Oh, yeah, it does.
Yeah.
I've full on rehearsed shows and learned songs just in my mind.
Yes.
And occasionally, only very rarely, I'll have a dream that I'm playing some song that's never been written before. Yeah. And when I wake up from the dream, I'll write it.
Yes.
And it's so fascinating to me. But yeah, I can listen to a song on the radio and I can, in my mind's eye, imagine exactly how to play that on a piano.
Yes.
And then if somebody was to be like, let's do it now, I could probably do it on the first try, depending on the difficulty of the song. But I can full on use that.
You know what's interesting is I do the same thing in my work in the salon when I'm cutting and coloring someone's hair. Mm-hmm. I see the image of what it's supposed to be in my mind's eye. And then I come up with the color formulation and the angles and portion and sections for the haircut based on the image I see in my mind's eye. And that's how I know what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
for their hair appointment that day.
Totally.
I see it all in my mind first. I know where the highlights should be placed. I know where the length should fall around the collarbone because I see it in my mind, and then I just act in reality to make it happen.
Totally.
That's really cool. That's the third eye. That's when the third eye is functioning. That's really, I've never thought about it in function with a third eye before because the third eye is always associated with spiritual things.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And sometimes people that like to throw out the term woo-woo, it's like none of this is actually woo-woo. Like when you talk about
very practical
imagination,
application.
or when you talk about how to think, if you're just even thinking of a math problem and you can get to the answer, that's part of your
In
third
your
eye.
mind. Yeah.
There is then this spiritual aspect to this conversation.
Yeah.
But ultimately, all of these are in us. Like we all have these chakras 24/7, always have.
Whether
it's just
you know
a
it or
matter of
not.
becoming aware.
Yeah.
And then
And
how do
learning
we,
them.
and then the conversation of raising your consciousness, that is part of this conversation. But
Brow.
I think we should get to
Or crown.
Crown chakra.
Crown chakra,
Yeah.
the tippy top of our head, which some people also say extends out above our head,
Yeah.
is associated with the color purple, which is also interesting to me because so many religious leaders and royal figures throughout history who were aligning themselves with the divine all wore robes in the color purple.
Yes. And there's this violet nature to that purple, and that some people in this world will understand the term the violet flame. That's where that comes from. Have you ever
What
heard
is
of
that?
that?
No, what is that?
So people that are into energy healing and you know, like the same type of people that would be into smudging and using sage and stuff like that, they'll know what I'm talking about. But you can, the violet
Because
flame.
I'm not enough into that.
Yeah, right.
Just on the fringes. Please enlighten me.
Well, the violet flame is kind of used as this third eye imagination based tool in meditation to heal and bring balance into an array of things. It can be into your body, it could be into your work life, a relationship, or any of those type of things. So the violet flame, I just wanted to throw that out there because I think some people out there may have heard the violet flame, but they may not understand that it comes from spirit.
Yeah.
You know, it's coming from this highest idea that we have in the top of our crown chakra. That's where we're pulling that from to offer the healing.
Sure. So crown chakra is associated, if third eye is the divine within ourselves, the crown chakra is the divine outside of ourselves. Or like more like the cosmic divine, that then it's our connection with the cosmic divine outside of ourselves. That's where it enters us, and that's where we bond, and that's where we connect.
Yes. Like reaching Holy Spirit, reaching source.
So when I meditate, I envision my crown like this. I almost envision like a little portal on top of my head opening, and then a big ray of light either coming out or like coming in to activate all of the energy centers, the chakras. But you know, but that also what it does is it reminds me that I'm not just here in the physical, but I'm also connected with everything outside of me as well.
Yeah, with spirit. You're making me think anybody that is wanting to try something in meditation, you could imagine that feeling of being in a shower with water hitting you on the top of the head. That is a great thing that we know that feeling. You can use that as a tool to try to awaken your crown chakra and like raise
Like
your...
if humming allows you to feel that vibration in your throat, imagining the sensation of the shower water hitting the top of your head kind of stimulates that vibration.
Yeah, the cosmic
awareness
energy
on the
pouring
top.
down into you.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I like that
I'm
too.
imagining the feeling right now.
Yeah,
I'm
know that
smiling
feeling. Yeah.
because it feels so good. Yeah.
Yeah, in my little diagram over here, it says that the crown chakra is blocked by ego attachment.
Yes.
Is that what you have in your notes?
Well, no, it's not in my notes, but that makes perfect sense to me because as we, there's a amount of death associated with the crown chakra.
Yeah.
The
This is the
ability to
hero's journey.
surrender.
Yeah, the hero's
Surrender
journey
to
again.
ourselves, surrender to our unfinished business, and at the time of death, the soul exits our body through the crown chakra.
Yep.
The crown chakra is the only one that can never close. As long as we are alive, it is always open because it's always connecting us to spirit.
Yeah.
And so if, ego being obsessed with our own individuality and our separation from everyone else would of course hinder that connection to all that is.
Yeah. We like to think that we're special, you know, and I'm not the type of I've heard some people be like, you should never talk like that. Like, no one is special. Everybody is unique. And I'm like, look, it's a confusing conversation. But yes, when the ego
It's
is
a paradox.
saying, it
You
is a
are
beautiful
your
paradox.
own unique soul, and also you are the divine that's in everything.
Exactly. But if you get
It's
caught
both.
up in
It's
that
both.
ego game of, I am the best, I'm better than that person, I'm rich, I'm powerful, I get all the girls, I'm, whatever. That is pure evidence, not only that you're in the lower chakras, but that the crown chakra is totally blocked.
Yeah.
I think the crown is
That's
when
all
you
survival instinct too.
Yeah. The crown is when you start really seeing the connectedness of all things. You start not just seeing the people in your life as another body that maybe God is manifesting, but you start to intuit it as another version of you. And you start to see how you are connected to other people and the plants and the animals, and that you are one with nature. And that only comes about when the crown is finally opening. And before that point, you think that you're some side of encapsulated skin bag that is separated from the rest of the world.
Oh God, I remember feeling that way when I was younger. Man, that's anxiety provoking.
Yeah.
The separation.
The separation. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the ultimate illusion
Yes.
that we have to get over.
Yeah.
Yeah, that separation is real, and that's even brought up in the Bible and some Gnostic conversations, that the main quote unquote trauma that our soul is trying to heal is the illusion of the separation of ourselves and spirit.
That's really interesting. I had this meditation, I haven't really talked to anyone about this, a few months ago, where I feel so much grief in my body. It comes up in energy work, and I have no memory of where this grief came from. Like, because grief is associated with loss. And it's like, was this a death? Was this a painful thing I experienced, a traumatic thing I experienced that I've suppressed? And I had this meditation where I was like, God, why does this well of grief come up if there's a crack in the dam, if there's a crack in the floodgates? It's like all of a sudden there's this overwhelming surge of grief. What's it associated with? Because I have no memory of it. And it still feels debilitating. And in this meditation, I was then surrounded by indigo and violet light swirling, almost like if you think of like a nebula in outer space where it's all of this dust and light and gas just swirling, but it was all the color indigo and violet. And it was this awareness of, this is what you're connected to all the time. And the grief that you feel is the shell that you've been put in this human body, where you're disconnected from this. And you're always trying to overcome this feeling of isolation and separateness because you are a part of this greater thing.
Totally.
And I was just bawling. It felt so freeing. It was like remembering. It was like remembering. My soul was like, I did used to swim in that purple sea and feel what it was like to be connected to all that is and not have to feel lonely.
Yeah.
Like, it was really powerful, but it was all of those colors.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's so true. When we're blocked like that and our hearts are shut down, I think it's devastating to our soul, because our soul does have a remembrance of what it's like to be on the other side of the veil. And when we come in to be a human being, we undergo this process of forgetting our true nature as one with the source. So I think that's part of this hero's journey, is to slay the inner dragons. And the inner dragons are all throughout this journey up our chakras.
Like each chakra has its own little dragon to overcome.
Each one. Yeah. Actually, we talked about The Last Airbender, like in one of our first podcasts.
We did.
But there's this amazing episode
I need to
where
watch that.
I've never seen it.
Called Avatar, apparently.
it's amazing. It's amazing. It's great. It's a kid's show. It was made originally on Nickelodeon. It's wonderful.
It's animated?
It's animated.
Okay.
Yeah. And because we are already long on the podcast, I'm not going to give a synopsis of it.
Yeah.
But there's this one episode where the main young boy, the last avatar, he has to learn about all of the chakras. And so they go through it.
Wow.
And each episode's like 20 minutes. In this episode, he meets this guru. And this whole series is very Eastern philosophy based. Yeah, it's wonderful. And so he ends up going through this whole understanding of chakras with the guru. In fact, I think next podcast, we should maybe play that clip.
Okay.
Because it's like maybe 7-8 minutes.
Okay.
And even if you couldn't see it, if you could hear it, it's still amazing. Just this whole description of the chakras.
Yeah.
But it shows he gets challenged at each chakra state with a certain thing that he has to get over.
Oh, wow.
So at the root chakra, he has to get over this one thing. At the next chakra, he has to get over another thing.
Yeah.
He has to learn a lesson at each chakra point in order to awaken all of the chakras. So that is what this hero's journey is about. It's the diving into the underworld, going into the roots, confronting the dragons all the way back up as in the return back to the world.
Yeah.
And then the transformation happens because of your reconnection with divinity. And Joseph Campbell talks not just about the transformation, but the transfiguration. So the transfiguration is actually a very important moment in the Jesus story. And again, it's long, so I'm not going to explain it all now, but it's a moment where he actually was perceived by the disciples as a different being.
I just learned this.
Yeah.
Like
As a
literally
being of
like
light.
2 weeks ago, I went, okay, so I have to interject really quick because this was so exciting for me to learn. I met with an Orthodox priest and had all of these questions.
As one does.
As one does in their free time.
Hey, got time for a coffee?
Yeah. And so he was great. Shout out to Father Peter because I handed him some questions. But one of the questions was about the resurrection. And he brought to my attention that when Jesus did come back and he was walking along beside them, the 12 disciples, 11 at that time. I guess Judas was gone. At that moment. So after Christ resurrected and he came back and he literally assimilated himself on the road and they were all walking and they were like, who's this man?
They didn't recognize him.
Like, who's this guy walking with us? And then one of them was like, Lord, like it's you. And then of course the story of doubting Thomas and that never I didn't realize that he actually came back looking different than he did in his physical body.
Right, yeah.
Because we always have this image of Jesus being resurrected looking the same as he did, like before he got
just with holes in his hands.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not exactly accurate. So there's also another moment in the Bible story before the crucifixion where Jesus takes his disciples out into some forest or field and this is one of the only moments where he actually says, I will show you what I really look like. And so he actually goes through a transfiguration in this moment as well, where he's showing them his light body, basically.
I need to read the Bible, apparently.
Yeah. It's amazing. It is amazing.
So I have a closing thought about the chakras that has to do with the light body.
Okay.
I had this
Bringing it full circle.
I had this idea when I was in one of my Reiki classes, I think, where if you think about light and you have a prism, like you have a clear glass pyramid, the light shines through, or like the crystals hanging in my window over there, that when the light shines through, it breaks apart the pure white light into the rainbow spectrum. Mm-hmm. And we look at that. And actually, I just watched an episode on Neil deGrasse Tyson's show called Cosmos, where they break down light. And he goes into it in much more detail. But when the light goes through the prism, we're able to actually study it in the exact rainbow spectrum. We see the wavelengths, and red is the widest, and the violet is the shortest. And then on each side, on the red side, there's actually infrared, which our naked human eye cannot see. And there's ultraviolet on the other side, which our naked human eye cannot see, but they exist.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, what if our crown chakra, maybe this is a complete metaphor, and maybe it's just from a dimension that we don't understand.
But
what if our crown chakra is a prism? And when the light being of our soul comes through it into our body, the light is then fragmented into the color spectrum, which falls along our spine and our cerebral spinal fluid as the chakras. And we have the red and we have the orange and we have the yellow and the green and the light blue and the indigo and the violet. And then the energy actually continues out through the bottom of our feet into the earth in the infrared zone and out the top of our head, which it kind of turns white. Some chakra traditions say in the ultraviolet zone. And if our spirit is a light being, our body prisms it into the whole different light spectrum.
Yeah, exactly.
And it shows up in our chakra field.
So we're just big giant prisms.
We're big giant prisms, and our soul is a light body, and it's fragmented into our chakras.
Yes.
I love that.
Is that bonkers? I got so excited
image.
when I had this image in my mind. I was like, because we're light bodies.
Yes.
And our body is a
love
prism.
that.
I was so excited.
Yeah,
That
it's
just-
expanded out.
I know we are going so far behind, and I really want to talk about. I want to keep talking
The
about this because it's so good.
episode begs to be talked about. What time are we?
We're well past an hour and a half.
Okay.
Approaching
Bye, people.
1:45.
I need a potty break.
Yeah,
because
let's do a part 2.
Yeah, I
Do
think
we want
maybe
to?
we should wrap
because
up.
next week I want to. We had talked about aligning the hero's journey with the chakras.
Yeah, I
opening.
think this is
and then we can
great.
go into more of like the personal application of how this has unraveled itself in our lives.
Because there's so much more to talk about. I want
Yeah.
to talk about the caduceus and the
yes.
symbol.
I
The
don't know that word. I'm
the
excited.
caduceus is you know this symbol.
Yeah,
it's
you
what we
do.
use on the side of hospitals with the rod and the two snakes,
And the
that
snakes
go around.
interweaving. Oh my gosh.
This is the whole
Because I have another thought about
conversation.
this. I'll save it for next time.
Okay.
Because there's the back and forth and it gets into the yin yang
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
we didn't
so-
even talk about that.
and
Very-
the passive and the
Well,
relaxed.
so very briefly,
Yeah.
that
Oh my
symbol,
gosh.
which comes from Greek mythology and
gosh.
even Egyptian mythology, the symbol is also in Vedic mythology, Hindu mythology.
It's the healing.
What it is literally the body in a coherent state, which when it's in coherent state is a healing state.
Yes.
But what creates coherence is this, your spine is the rod that goes up and down.
Yes.
And that in yoga philosophy is called the Sushumna. So your Sushumna is the center spinal rod of your
Yes.
body. Then you have the two snakes, which is what in yoga philosophy called Ida and Pingala, or Ida and Pingala. Basically is yin yang,
Feminine.
masculine, feminine,
Yes.
positive, negative.
Yes.
And those two snakes intersect at every chakra point, and then they reach the crown chakra. And I'll leave you just here with a little bit of teaser. The reason why the snakes go up to the feathers at the top of this pole is so freaking deep. We're going to go so deep on that symbolism. But it all has to do with your earthly nature.
So excited.
Your earthly nature, which is metaphorical to the snake, always on its belly, stuck on the earth plane, sprouting wings, now giving you the ability to go into the ethers, the heavenly realms,
Which is the root chakra going
which is
up
the
to
root
the crown
chakras.
chakra.
And then you look at the rest of the world. My favorite example of this is in Mexico at Chichen Itza, the Aztec pyramids. They talk about this pyramid is designated to what they called the Kukulkan, which is the feathered serpent. Same symbology. This same symbology shows up all over the world of the feathered serpent. And this is exactly what we've been talking to and kind of culminating with now is, okay, here's all the info of the chakras, but now what? And how does this
Yes.
apply?
Yes.
And that's
Whether
where
it's-
this conversation is going to explode.
Isn't a dragon a
Which
winged
part?
serpent?
A winged serpent? It's not typically in mythology. A dragon is not typically associated this way, but it could be. But typically it's a snake that has wings
Okay.
or sprouts wings of some kind.
Cool. All
Oh
right.
my
I have homework
gosh.
to do.
And I think
Oh,
we're
yeah.
actually going to go 3 weeks before the next one.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
So we can, oh my gosh, sit
Yes.
tight,
Bum,
buckle
bum,
up.
bum.
And
Yeah.
I think because we did a little bit of a third eye exercise, I don't know that we need to close with a meditation
Yeah,
exercise
I think
today.
we should wrap it up here. And
All right.
we're going to deep dive more next time.
if this sparked anything in you, please email us at therememberingpodcast@gmail.com.
Yes.
Or DM us.
Just
Instagram.
Instagram. DM us on Instagram.
That's the
Yeah.
easiest.
That's probably most direct.
Yeah,
Instagram
let's just do
is
that.
Instagram is the Remembering Podcast, and Twitter is Remembering 1111.
Yeah.
Send us a message, especially on Instagram or on Gmail, because we would love to explain more, answers to your questions.
Yeah.
And
All right.
my friend Matt, who is in medicine in Canada, this episode was for you. I just want you to know that.
Oh, cool. Thanks,
Bam,
Matt.
bam. Shout outs.
Who inspired
Shout
this
outs.
episode.
Also, this one is for my mom. Just want to say, hi, Mom. Thanks for giving me my
Okay,
chakras.
bye, everyone. See you later.
All right, we're out of here. Have a
Bye,
good day,
love
everybody.
you.
We'll see you in about 3 weeks.